Alright, testing. Alright, recording. Alright, petroleum crude oil has its rating high. Dot hazard 12 flammable 230. Dot hazard classification. National Fire Protection Association 704 standard system identification hazard material for emergency response. Petroleum crude oil gas number 802059 UN 12677. Dot hazard class 3 flammable liquid emergency response guide number 182. Transportation planning consideration when increased production of oil shale reserves in the state of North Dakota and Texas has a dramatic increase in transportation of crude oil by rail. Rail shipments of crude oil with the regions particularly may be using unit trains. Using unit trains, crude oil, the single commodity trains, and that generally consists of over 100 tanker cars, each carrying approximately 30,000 gallons of crude oil. Unit typically move with a one location ship to the production facility. The transloading facility with a single destination petroleum refinery. Given using length of the train with over a mile long, derailments caused by the road closure create significant detours of required response for more than one direction to access the scene of the incident. In the event of the incident, the may involve the release of the thousands of gallons of product for the ignition of the tanker car's crude oil unit train. Most emergency response organization will not have the available resource for the capability of the trained personnel to safely, effectively extinguish a fire containing a spill with a magnitude of sufficient firefighting foam concentration and appliance equipment water supply. Response unit training derailments for crude oil will require specialized outside resource for the may not arrive at the scene for hours. Therefore, it is critical the response coordinate with the activities involved with the railroad, initiate requests of specialized resources over as soon as possible. These derailments were likely to require mutual aid and more robust on-scene incident management systems. The responder may normally use, therefore, pre-incident planning, preparedness, coordination, response strategies should be considered made up of the part of the response plan. Drills exercises include the ship of the rail carrier of the commodity. Tanker cars, crude oil may also found with the general freight with a manifest train that are made up of the shipments, many with a different commodity, with many different shippers. In these situations, emergency response need to consider the potential impact of the tanker car containing other hazardous commodities may have on tanker cars containing crude oil, but the release of the curve with the vice versa. Determine whether the specific commodity with the hazardous material may be involved with the responder should obtain with the train consists of the train crew or by contacting rail carrier's emergency contact number. Hazardous summary. Petroleum crude oil is a light dark colored liquid hydrocarbon containing flammable gas that does not uniform substance with physical chemical properties may vary with the oil field to oil field with wells located with the same oil field. Light sweet crude oils contain flammable gases such as butane, propane, unless it is known where the gases have been removed. The gases can readily ignite and release when they come in contact with the ignition source. The crude oils may also contact the hydrogen sulfide. A toxic inhalation has a material with the vapor space of the tanker car due to the characteristic of the crude oil of the accident scenario. The behavior of the product may range from that of gasoline from a lighter sweet crude oils to diesel fuel with a heavier sour crude oils. Releases may create vapor explosion, have it indoors in confined space, outdoors, in sewers, and remove source of the heat and sparks and flame and the friction, electricity, including internal combustion engines and power tools. Using caution when approaching the scene of the position apparatus, implementing air monitoring as soon as possible to detect the presence of the combustible gases. Volatile vapors relieve the slip air with the may create with the flammable atmosphere. Some of the crude oil vapors may be heavier with an air accumulate low airs and travel some of the distance source of ignition. Flashback. When working flammable atmosphere, the concentration lower explosive limit that exists. Extreme caution must be taken into account with creating the ignition source of this. It includes but not limited to using the sparking tools and intrinsically safe explosion-proof equipment. The more volatile materials of crude oil may present with a higher concentration, creating the inhalation hazard. This also possibility with the crude oil may contain the varying concentration benzene, hydrogen sulfide. Products of combustion may also be included with toxic consistence. Responders should also wear self-contained breathing apparatus to avoid potential exposure. Use water, fog, spray to coal containers, control vapors, and protect personnel with exposure. Direct the cooling water to the top of the tank, and then some potential containers of the liquid that are not properly cooled may rupture and violently to exposed and to the fire with excessive heat. Stray away from the end of the tank and then involved in the fire with the relief. The shrapnel may travel in any other direction. Do not apply water directly inside the tank of the car. Apply with the water to the side of the tank of the car with a safe distance to keep the fire exposed. With the container cools for using unmanned fire monitor the cooling tank of the car when available. The withdrawal immediately when the case of the rising sound of the vent pressure relieved by the discoloration tank if available. The dry chemical extinguishing agents such as potassium bicarbonate, purple K may also be used in conjunction with Class B foams. Improper application of the fire streams may create dangerous phenomena known as slop over there, increasing the risk of the emergency responders. Slop over is result when a water stream is applied with a hot surface with the boiling oil. The water is converted into the stream, causing the agitation of the liquid burning over the slop over the sides of the tanker car. This can occur within 10 minutes of the production becoming involved in the fire. Note: slop over will not occur in pool of crude oil on the ground. Hazards of combustion. Decombustion products may be relieved by the material when they expose the heat of fire. This causes include the carbon monoxide, sulfide oxide, nitrogen oxide, alpha antihydrate. Responding personnel should exercise with extreme caution on seeing wear and appropriate personal protective equipment, clothing, and include respiratory protection. And applying Class B firefighting as you would on fires involved with the hydrocarbons. Class B with ignition of the flammable and combustible liquid foam is most effective with static fire with containment the same manner with the firefighting of the non-effect with the hydrocarbons in motion. Three-dimensional fires that include product leaking, spring with the man-ways valve with the fracture of the tank shell rips and tears, etc., and slips and slopes of the crane. As a general rule, do not flush crude oil spills. Do not flush crude oil spills with water. Most crude oils are not water soluble and have a tendency to float on the water. Some crude oils will sink, and some of the fraction of the crude oil water is soluble. For other crude oils on the float that float on water, burning of the crude oil may be carried away from the immediate area and may reignite in the surface of the water. Prevent runoff of the entire storm and sewer system in the sense of the area that may create with a serious hazard of potential environmental problem. To notify the property authorities downstream sewer with the water treatment operation on the downstream users and potential contaminated water and runoff may be flammable. The toxic should be contained with a treaty of the disposal and conform for the applicable federal and state local environmental regulations. Railroad safety procedure. The emergency response personnel should always be with a potential serious injury when working in and around railroad cars, tracks, and related equipment. The following safety operation practice should be followed with the emergency response operation scene with the crude oil train derailment. Expect the train and rail equipment to move any of the track with the direction any of the time. Watch for the movement of the both direction before crossing the track. If the tracks are clear, walk with a single file with the right angle with the rails. Triangles, approach with the light, no wirings, no warning. You may be not able to hear them due to the atmosphere condition. Terrain knows you work equipment and passing train on the track with staying with a minimum of 25 feet away from the track for the possible safety of the train. When rail equipment is passing through, always contact with the railroad to advise them of your presence. They may not know that you are on scene, that they have the problem. Work with the railroad to make sure that the track with the blue flag with the railroad version provide with the protection by the lockout, tag out procedure process. Never stand and walk sit on the railway tracks between the rails and into the ties. Never the step on the rail with the step over the rail can be slip trip or the fall hazard. Never put your feet on the movable parts of the rail cars or the coupler and sliding sills of the uncoupling levers. Do not occupy area between the adjacent track with the multiple track territory where the train is passing and crossing between the two stationary rail cars, ensuring that less than 50 feet between them. Be especially careful with the rail yards and terminal area of the tank cars are pushing and move within the chain of the tracks. Often the cars that appear with the stationary or in storage can begin to move without warning. Be sure the rail equipment is secured again for the moving within shock with the handbrakes are secured, etc. Before attempting to work on it and nearing it, keep at least 25 feet away with the end of the car locomotive to protect yourself of the sudden movement, and never move the equipment over the cross of the track unless the established road crossing under the supervision railroad representative. If necessary, climb the railway equipment to 3 points of contact at all times with the ladders for the railway equipment to make curve the around the car with make it difficult to find with the rung of your foot with the first step of the rail equipment, typically with some of the distance off the ground with the descending with the ladder step. Do not jump with the last step. From the last step, normally there is a ballast around the tracks and can be uneven and shift the car with the falling half. The locomotive steps are considered ladders. Always wait for the locomotive going up and coming down. Never cross over and under the railway equipment. Use the ladder with a hand over the cross over the platforms. Walking around with the attached equipment. Remember to block the feet and tie off the ladders to the top of the laddering. Tank cars, box cars, always consider you within 2 points of the access. The second point with the escape of the other becoming inaccessible for any of the reason plan to use your own ladders. Avoid using cell phones within 25 feet of ladder tracks. Be aware location and structure for the obstruction for the clearance. Close. Stay away from track stretches since they may be remotely operated. Emergency procedures. Emergency response organizations should use the following framework: incident with the management and best practices to prepare and safely effectively respond to the crude oil rail transportation incident. Pre-incident planning with the preparedness emergency response services determining the rail carrier that has the material move through the communities. Certain with the crude oil is one over the product of the being with the transporter. Accomplish with contact with the individual rail carrier. Requesting a list of the hazard commodities for the transport through the community. We with the Association of American Railroad Circular number 0255 protocol. This information can assist with the preparing an emergency response plan procedures. Note a copy of the latest version of the AAR Circular 0255 of the other related hazard material reference can be downloaded at www.boe.aar.com/boe-download.html. Emergency response should contact with the engaged the State Emergency Response Commission, local emergency plan committee within the jurisdiction, State Emergency Response Commission, local emergency plan committee. Valuable resources to pertain to the information concerned with the hazard commodities being transported order through the committee and subject to crude oil wells, providing assistance with emergency response preparedness, response activity, local emergency planning committees. Emergency response can also seek planning of the information boundary specific training at CAA, TRANAS, CAER.com, selection of the date of the region, determine designated contacts. Our emergency response should also contact with the railroad to identify the appropriate point of contact with the railroad has some material the response for the personnel are likely to interfere with it during an emergency if they can help the absolute line of communication associated with the information resource with the driver to an incident with the railroads can also provide with the extent of the rail specifically emergency response training. There is no copy of the emergency with the response to the information may be obtained with the website with the contact the medical media public relations department. Emergency response should identify the appropriate 24-hour emergency contact with the number of the major class 1 railroads and should be listed with the emergency operation response plan with the emergency contact number of the class 1 railroads are listed below. BNSF, Canadian National Railway, Canadian Pacific Railway, the CSX Transportation, Kansas City Southern Railway Network, Northern, Southern Folk Railroad, Union Pacific. Emergency response should also give any of the contact with the short line regional railroads that service of the area with the obtaining of the emergency contact information. These organizations should also be part of the pre-incident planning, preparedness, training exercise with the activity. Emergency response should establish contact with the state and local environmental protection agency, representative identify the potential monitoring with the control of the responsible resource capability of the resource should be included with the organization emergency response plan. Emergency responders contact with the federal agency, U.S. Coast Guard, with the determine the level of the assistance may be provided with the spill with the navigable waters located within the jurisdiction of the source, as well as the federal resource with the banking contact with the National Response Center at 1-800-424-8802. Organization shall include the railroad annex to the emergency response plan with a specifically addressed crude oil, transportation, emergency response operation. Annex should include hazard analysis of identify the potential risk and people to property, emergency contact list, resource listing, equipment inventories, foam and water supply requirements for the operation of the remote sites, incident management system roles and responsibility, mutual aid, response to asset, law enforcement, scene of security, the control, operations, support, recovery assets. Emergency response plan. Note: emergency response plans and procedures should be developed with close coordination with the railroad, since they will play a critical role with the response to recovery operations. The railroad should be conducted with the exercise of the plan at regular intervals to identify any of the issues that may require corrective action prior to the accident and actual accident. Incident management principle: initial site management control with a critical benchmark and managing with the problem. Isolate, secure the area to establish a secure perimeter of the entry of the control point for the prevent unauthorized personnel from entering the scene that can be accomplished with tape with tape prior to the traffic film with the sign fire service with law enforcement personnel. The location of the restricted area that communicate with the all impacted personnel operating on the scene with the beginning of the site assessment of the safety distance upwind and uphill with the instant command system should be established outside of the impacted area as soon as possible. Follow initial guidelines provided by the emergency response guide book, and if the practical, establish staging area with the cold zone with the responding equipment personnel with the national incident management should be the framework to advantage of all of the incident operation, including the national incident management system could be attained with the Phmsa.gov with the National Incident Management System and Unified Command should be established and integrated with these agency, organizational, legal, with the jurisdictional responsibility liaison should provide by the Incident Command both by assisting with the cooperating agencies to ensure the effective communication, coordinate, or to do aside with the duration, complexity of these incident command should consider the possibility of additional support with the regional state with all the hazard incident management teams, the all hazard incident management teams of the multiple agency. Multi-jurisdictional team with the extent of the incident form, but the managed by the local, state, and the tribal level. The designated team of the training personnel from the different departments, organization, agency, the jurisdiction of the authorized. All hazard incident management teams are deployed as the training represent multiple disciplines, major or complex incidents requiring significant and or local, state, and the tribal resource. They do not assume the command of the incident with the help of the local officials. Manage incidents extend with the multiple operation periods as required with the incident action plan with the incident that can include with the weather related with the disaster such as the tornado, earthquake, flood, and major hazards and people inside. Incidents such as the train realm and the emergency responders shall anticipate with a large number of the list of agencies operating within the scene with the Coast Guard, Environmental Protection Agency, National Transportation Safety Board, Chemical Safety Board with privacy contractors. In addition, with the non-emergency regional, multiple agencies may have the role to play with the need to integrate with the common structure. The railroad will integrate with the response asset of the public safety, national incident management system of the structure. Will the exact structure vary based on the scope of the nature of the incident scenario. It will often integrate with the railroad branch with the operation section and local scale. Incident that may require activation with the jurisdictional emergency operations center. Emergency operations center shall fully be staffed with the roles and responsibility of the participating agency must be clearly defined with the organization emergency response plan. 3. Problem identification. Identify the conformity of the vary with the presence of the hazard material, the extent of the problem that can be done with the should be able to The train consists of the plaque over the label that contains shape of the marking colors and seen with the observable flame, observable flame plum. And for the rail container located with the train crew conductor will have the complete with the train consists of the immediately available on the scene of the make contact with the conductor with the crew until the relief of the railroad official will notify the rail car and carrier's emergency operations center for the head of the railroad check at the top of the entering location of the incident, avoid further risk of the personnel operating at the scene that request the copy of the train consists of the wheel report over the ICP. And responding to the railroad officials may also have a copy of the train consists of the absence shipping tape with the emergency response show the binoculars for the safety distance of the plane and located with the 4-digit identification number with the black card orange panel with the display of the rail car shipping paper and black card marking with the label of the destroyed reporting mark of the number of the rail car can be identified by the commodity present when coming contact with the rail. Provide the following information: your name, location, organization, with the telephone number, location, instant provided the railroad dot crossing number, the railroad multi-mile post, specific location can be identified with the type of the number involved with the presence of the marking label of the report marking with the black card, the tank car presence, smoke with fire spill, with the extent of the damage of the topographic weather condition. If the picture can be taken in a safe position, do so with the send of the railroad representative as quick as possible. Be aware to utilize the common run of the next of the railroad out of the right of way with the part of the scene of the size of the look of the downward shift of the communication line. Power line with the power to all utility above ground switch and heating systems. For hazardous assessment, risk and evaluation. Hazardous assessment with risk and evaluation. Profit critical step to identify the level of the danger involved. Products contained within their behavior, which is generally related to the physical and chemical properties. The risk refer to the probability of suffering harm or loss of the different each of the incident with the need of the value of the incident command for the emergency response with the number of the reference material with the emergency response guide with the safety data. The technical specialists available to contacting the shipper of the railroad with the contact of the chemical Transportation Emergency Center, and at 1-800-424-9300 to the 2400 emergency contact telephone numbers required to include with the shipping date with the federal hazardous material regulation. Evaluate the risk and performance personnel intervene with it directly when the incident consider the limitation of people involved with the ability, the adequate resource available at the site, sufficient firefighting foam concentration water supply pipeline for the equipment and train for the personnel with the technical expertise with availability to sustain an operation extended period of the time and the hours of the day. The level of risk will be identified by the following factors: the nature of the material involved, the quality of the materials involved, the type of the stress of the applied to the container, and the breach of the release of the scenario, proximity, exposure, and nature of the train, level of available source, the adequate foam supply, location of the foam supply, response time and appliance, equipment, the emergency response personnel playing with the need to consider the following factors that may be the influence of the behavior that has material, the inherent air property of the quantity of the material, with the design characteristics of the container, environmental factor of the weather, topographic surrounding physical structures. Factors should be considered to help the estimate with the potential impact of the problem, help the container with the breach of the product following with will the container content of the relief of the container with the contents likely to go there. How will the container contents get there? How will the container contents get there? Harm with the container with the contents cover when they get there? How much material they has been relief of the proximity of the release of the people, the property, and the environment? Is the material on with the other tank of the cars with the risk become involved? Do you have the capability to successfully control fire spread, which in some cases may require the minimum of approximately 500 gallons per minute per exposed tank car? Adequate foam and supply of the equipment available to post-fire operation that may be last of the several hours over the day of the non-fire spill scenario with the head of the concentration flame level taxable vapor present and determine the evening air monitoring instrument with the flammability of the toxic reading. If the need of the continuous air monitoring with it being properly evaluated, discover the technical specialties can source with ignition be removed. They are eliminated. The adequate foam supply with the available equipment available for vapor suppression. No agency should refer to the most recent addition with the National Fire Protection Association 11th General low, medium, high expansion foam with information concerning the specific requirements of foam application based on the result of the hazard assessment risk evaluation process. There are the adequate resources available to respond to the scene with a responsible time frame. Intervene with the time effort. Intervene efforts will be successful. And no initial benchmark with the asset for the agency with the capability successfully manned for the incident command incident involved with the train carrying crew over the evening operating capability with the response successfully manned for the gasoline truck with the incident with typically with the involved with approximately 9,000 gallons of the gasoline with regard to the quantity of the product with the tank one tank car with crude oil with equivalent approximately 3 gasoline tank trucks. The potential magnitude of the type of the incident must be considered when preparing the emergency plans and operating procedures. Emergency responders should the information opens like the foundation of the IAP and the incident of the IAP should be developed with any of the incident with the potential at least 24 hours and the new update of the IAP developed with the successful operation of the period. Is your agency not fully prepared with the capable to determine the resource equipment for the properly trained personnel with the intervening dependent with the non-intervening with the traffic that will be likely to prefer strategic operations selection personnel protective clothing and equipment. Should emergency responders use the personal protective equipment and the clothing equal to hazardous present with the structural firefighting protective clothing, and positive pressure self-control breathing apparatus should be involved in the initial level of the personal protective equipment selected. Rescue should be performed on the when the location of the possible and the level of the personal protective equipment should be able to result of the air monitoring operation, continuous monitoring with combustible gas indicator of the instrument with the capability of detecting the toxic components of the crude oil vapors, hydrogen sulfide, etc. Importantly, the instrument safety the instrument can be included with a direct detector tubes and polyphotoization detectors. The SFPC will provide the thermal protection over the structural fire, providing protective clothing, protection from fire involved with the crude oil have with the structural fire and protective clothing. Porous will absorb with a scenario that do not and will not include the possibility of fire, such as the spill control cleanup activity, including decontamination chemical with slash protective clothing protection. The capability of NIOSH approved with the respirator may be required depending on the property of the product. Information out of the selection of personal protective equipment, the oil spill response available. The American Petroleum Institute recommended practice in 78 personal protective equipment selection for oil spill response. With the recommended practice can be obtained with contacting API 268 8000 online API.org program G09801. Local logistic resource management. Order specialized equipment and technical resource early in if you're unsure of the initial resource requirements, always with the highest level of the systems available. With the additional resource for the actual activate control and aid agreements. Establishing a local section early with the incident with the critical provide with the necessary support resource for the service to meet the operational objective of the scope of the resource of the need to successfully manage with the crude oil rail transportation incident will overwhelm the capability of the most emergency response agency. The emergency planning of the response agency must identify the logistics needed to identify by the agency, the organization that meet these requirements, effectively manage the resource available to identify for the NIM, National Information Management System. The railroad probably incident management system. The railroad primarily provide the logistics support and resource of the railroad can care with the provide the emergency response resource, the air monitoring, environmental management capability, technical specialist, contact safety management, the crude oil train to derailment. For example, the rail carriers may use the private contact to provide the air monitoring toxicological assessment. The time required for the assessment to avoid air arrived on the scene of the initiative of the operation must be taken into account since long days can be diminished operational effectiveness, logistic assess of the position movement. It should be considered included in need of the escort facility prompt access of the scene. Technical specialist contactor support can also be made available from the ship that can be obtained with the contact the 24-hour emergency telephone number that provided with the shipping paper, the contact chemical track with the 1-800-424-9300. Emergency response may also be obtained with assistance for the National Response Center with the calling 1-800-424-8802. For example, the National Response Center can provide with the 24 active of the federal government agency to restore the technical assistance in the National Response Center. Also serve the Environmental Protection Agency have the material hotline, U.S. Coast Guard oil spill hotline. Alright, 7. Select the implementing response object for the initial state of the incident revolve with the crude oil ship incident with the analysis of the appropriate site-specific response to achieve the potential efforts for the effects of the incident that would have the nearby life of the property critical system. The environmental emergency response guide should be used all responding emergency responders with the initial response with the guidance for the crude oil incidents. Traditional firefighting strategy for the taxi that may not be an effective for the situation. These incidents also need to be approached managed with the hazard control problem to ensure the proper appropriate technical assistance of the support with the outside reach for the notified request as soon as possible. The review of the railroad emergency telephone number to show the communication with the railroad state and communication with the railroad, the train crew with the disabled or unavailable train consistently available. The railroad emergency telephone number to point of contact can be sent. The scene with the Viva the email fax confirming your location. Emergency railroad emergency telephone number point of contact emergency milepost individual grade of the crossing identification number at near the scene. Coordinator operation for the railroad chemical spill. Chemical shippers for the chemtrick for the shippers for the 24-hour emergency contact with the ensure that you have the success of the information be able to confirm with the command of the 10 cars involved in the accident. Utilize railroad hazard material for the personnel with arrive on the scene with it consists of the size of the damage assessment of these personnel have been specifically trained with the response of the railroad emergency derailments. Based on the collection, evaluation, verification, verification, response information, emergency responding near to determine whether the incident should be handled offensively, defensively, or non-interventionally respond to the offensive attacks significantly increase the risk of the emergency responders. Emergency responders. The following factors should consider the part of the developing initial response strategy. Are there life and safety or exposure for the danger for the responder must address right now that can safely evacuate the protect the place. The response consideration number of the people to protect the ability of the public domain to be able to time the reach for the need adequate facility the shelter of evacuees. Can responders safely approach the line of the incident, the location of the incident, access of the terrain, number of tanker cars, examine the damage size of the spill, leak of the fire involved. Do the responders fully understand the nature of the scope of the problem, the hazard assessment of the risk of evacuation must be completed with the result of the ship of the technical specialties for the railroad and shipper. If the fire involved does not responders immediately active with the sufficient foam of the water supply with the required effective fire from the control suppression operation. Most fire departments will not have adequate foam water spill control of the reach of the initial attack with crude oil. The derailment scenario, the large fire, the defensive operation will likely be the required sufficient foam concentration water spill control with related support of the resources on the scene. If the spill is involved due to the responding necessary spill control equipment readily available on site, due to the responders have the spill control vapor suppression equipment and chemical available on site, can a fire suppression agent effectively apply with the tank cars involved with cooling water effectively apply with any exposure impact of direct flame impingement. Fire suppression agents and cooling water must be able to reach for the intent of the targets of the fact with the excessive supply of the equipment limited with the ability of suppression agency of the cooling water to reach the effective area will be diminished. If not, a fire can potential ignition source be removed or eliminated. Vehicle traffic may be like the next switching system of the industrial air conditioning units and traffic signal not needed to be switched off, etc. Well, distinguishing improve the worsening with the incident with the wet is an environmental impact doing some of the situation for the best safety the response option with the defense of the non-intervening with the tactics allow the first fire burnout. Some of the extinguishing with fire when they cover the additional risk of the personnel, the damage of the environmental decision, protect with exposure, let with the product burn, but the most of the concern. Have appropriate notification been made with the organization emergency response plan and been activated? These incidents cannot be safely effectively managed alone, but the additional technical support resources must be requested immediately with the core of the agency respond, emergency respond with the railroad and shippers with the primary review and technical support with the reach over the integral component of the organization emergency response plan procedure the operation. The following example to provide the operational consideration first respond with the regarding scope of the magnitude of the reach over the requirements of the responder to the managing of the crude oil training derailment. Example A, derailment no fire spill. Implement the emergency response plan. Ship the railroad is notified of the emergency contact number, the call of the 24-hour contact number, the ship delivered the ship to be able to available the train crew with the information not available. The train crew contact the railroad emergency contact number. The contact Chemtrack 1-800-424-9300 is no emergency contact. If there is no emergency contact telephone number to list for the shippers with the technical assistance needed, the contact that has assessment risk evaluation determine the scope of the magnitude of the problem, reach with the requirements of response operation options. Do not overlook the obvious. The physical hazard that may be present with such of the damage rail with the other equipment that may have the sharp jagged edges. Conduct continuous air monitoring. Appropriately define the operations will control the activity as part of the limited side of the spread with the relief of the damning of the document that may require limit of the potential spill over the migrate with the immediate area of the cover, the extent of the environmental damage of the home supply with the equipment available on site with the form should be applied with the vapor suppression. Refer to the emergency response guide with the recommended isolation distance. The example will be with the derailment with the fire with the unit train 1 car relief of the contained spill with the fire. Implement emergency response plan with the ensure the railroad notified with the emergency contact number, the 24-hour emergency contact number, should deliver the shipping paper to be able to train crew with the information not available. The train crew contact the railroad emergency contact number. Call contact Chemtrack with 1-800-424-9300 if there is no emergency contact telephone number to list with the shipper medical assistance needed. Conduct hazard assessment risk evaluation to determine the scope of the magnitude of the problem and reach with the requirements response opportunity. Do not overlook the objectives. Obvious physical habit that present the size of the damage rate with the other corner that may have the sharp of the jagged edge of the continuous air monitoring and appropriate confinement of the operation of the spill contact control tech of the priority of the limited side of the relief of the damming of the deck that may require the limit of the potential of the spill of the mitigated beyond with the immediate area caused environmental damage of the fire suppression trailer located or slick the responder will be notified by the emergency response guide for the recommended isolation distance. Fire suppression operation initiated respond needs sufficient foam with concentration for the supply with the adequate water supply forming foam applying for the equipment and properly trained with the personnel with effectively implement sustained fire suppression post fire suppression operation. Critical question: do you have the ability to extinguish the single car tanker cover containing 30,000 gallons of crude oil because some of the guidance of the National Fire Protection Association 11 is aimed for the low, medium, and high expansion foam with the 2011 edition for the special spill experience scenario greater than 1 inch of the depth of the agency that will need the minimum approximately 216 gallons over the 3% foam. The concentration will be able the first 15 minutes of the operation based on spill area with approximately 3,000 square feet. Additional reapplication of the foam will be normally necessary for the maintaining of the adequate foam. Blank. Note that 1% of the foam concentration is available to you with approximately 72 gallons of the foam with the concentration required for the first 15 minutes of the operation. If you do not have the capability of safely, effectively implementing, sustaining the strategy, the defense of the non-intervention with the strategy should be pursued. Example C with the derailment with a fire on unit train with multiple car with the involvement of the release and spill with the fire. Implement the emergency response. Ensure that the railroad is notified of the emergency contact number, the call of the 24-hour emergency contact number, the shipper lifted and the shipping paper to be able to train crew with the information not available. The train crew contact the railroad emergency contact number. Contact Chemtrack with 1-800-424-9300 the no emergency contact telephone number listed with the shipper with the other technical assistance needed. The contact with the hazard assessment risk evaluation determine the scope of the magnitude of the problem, the ratio of the requirement of the response options. not overlook the obvious physical hazard may be present with the damage of the rail. Now, their equipment may have a short jab. They have the continuous with the air mining appropriate and the fund operation spill content control detected with the prior to limited to side of the spread with the relief of the damming of the deck, and they may require limited the potential for the spill with the mitigate with the beyond immediate air with the call environmental damage suppression strategy for the better select with the respondent need to refer to the emergency response have the recommended installation distance. Fire suppression operation initiated to respond to the need sufficient foam concentration for the supply of the adequate water supply foam applying with equipment and properly trained with the personnel effectively implementing sustaining operation resource requirements to safely effectively respond to the incident with the magnitude but exceed the capability of the emergency response organization situation of the nature amount of foam and the concentration required availability on site at the beginning of the suppression of the National Fire Protection Association 2011 and 1. In addition, the further spill scenario greater than 1 inch of depth, approximately 26 gallons of the 3% foam concentration, first 15 minutes for the aeration basin spill area with approximately 3,600,000 square feet, in addition with the reapplication of the foam normally necessary to maintain an adequate foam blanket. So that 1% of the foam concentration available to you with approximately 8,666 gallons of the foam of the concentration would require the release first 15 minutes of the operation. Note that the strategy the type of the incident that provide the highest level of safety, respond with defensive protective exposure and non-intervention. Alright, 8. Your cleanup up and post-emergency operations. Double the decontamination corridor with the warm on the way from the contaminated area. Ensure that all protective clothing and equipment is isolated with the proper disposal of the cleanup or indoor cleaning. Ensure the proper decontamination emergency personnel before leaving of the scene of the crude oil with the vapor to saturate protective clothing may be carried off the side of the personal should not have the has vapor before moving the personal protective equipment. Use massive water with the rinse for the outer strip of the protective clothing to maintain appropriate respiratory protection throughout the decontamination process to contain all the runoff of substances that may contain as harmful contamination and contaminants properly disposed of the applicable federal, state, and local environmental regulations. Anything else with the properly documented incident depth of all of the avenues. This has been a Phmsa petroleum crude oil reference in the September 2014, and we were once again reading the commodity preparedness incident management reference sheet with the petroleum crude oil derailment. U.S. Department of Transportation Pipeline Hazard Material Safety Administration.